That's because
Well, you've chosen to wear the book.
And I'm proud of it. I'm not complaining. I'm
And
saying,
why don't they
look
say,
at the reality
you're
of the
wearing
world.
a camel hair blazer. You're a Christian. Why should we?
I'm not asking for help.
I wouldn't treat you last.
Okay, but I'm telling you that's the way the world is. We don't look for help. Why should we give help to others?
This is, Zena, this is your father's book, the Satanic Bible. I mean, this is it. This is the diatribe of the devil that has brought together thousands of people in your belief system.
Mm-hmm.
I dip my forefinger in the watery blood of your impotent, mad Redeemer and write over his thorn-torn brow, the true Prince of Evil.
Isn't that poetic?
Do you believe that, Zena?
And aren't you taking it a bit out of context?
I'm reading it. I mean, I'm reading it.
Well,
okay.
isn't
Hand me that
Jesus...
Holy Bible and I'll read you something too.
Zena, you know what I'm reading. I mean, you know the book. It's page 30
By our
right
standard,
here.
Jesus is the true Prince of Evil.
Will you let me read something from my own book?
Well, let me read it first,
Oh,
okay?
and why is that?
You don't want to... I'm reading...
Why can't I choose things to read as you would choose things from your book carefully
because I'm the person conducting the interview right now.
Well, maybe we should interview you.
Survival of the fittest.
I gaze into the glassy eye of your fearsome Jehovah.
Right.
I pluck him by the beard. I uplift a broad axe and split open his worm-eaten skull.
Right.
Did you know who wrote that?
You tell me.
Do you know who Ragnar Redbeard is?
Who?
Ragnar Redbeard?
No, yes, Redbeard, yes. He wrote this. Well, your father's re-quoted it here.
Okay.
Whatever the case. Now, this is violent. This is abusive. It is...
To Jehovah?
It's insulting, but beyond the insulting part of it, do you not find any reprehensibility in using this kind of language? Mind you, I don't believe that Buddha is God. I don't believe that Muhammad was a prophet. But I would never write something like this about Muhammad or Buddha.
That's because you feel like you have to please everyone.
No, because I would have some feelings of sensibility. I mean, you don't feel that there's any inciting of any violent rage in people in this type of language?
Obviously there is.
Of course
I'm asking Zena, do you?
Of course there is.
Well, you do believe there is the inciting.
There's the inciting of some realization. I wouldn't say of a violent rage. There's the inciting, what I've heard anyway, that people read that and they say, yes, that's the way I've felt all my life.
All right, I want to go through the 9 satanic statements, and I'm going to ask each of you alternately, if you will, to elaborate on them so that there is no misunderstanding.
Should be pretty self-explanatory, but...
Unlike the Christian Bible, the Satanic Bible speaks for itself. It requires no scholars to have councils of Trent to decide what this word meant or that word.
I wouldn't say that the Bible does either, but let's get to the 9 satanic statements, okay? Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Zena?
Isn't that self-explanatory? What is indulgence? That you have to be good to yourself before you can adequately be good to others? Is that evil? Is that wrong?
Are there any limits on that indulgence?
There's another section in the Satanic Bible that differentiates indulgence from compulsion.
Okay.
Maybe
and self-destruction.
Would you not, let's suppose that a pedophile's indulgence were the molestation of children. Would you place that under this particular heading here of the first satanic statement, if that's his indulgence?
It's clearly stated in there how we feel about children and animals, and you know it.
I'm asking you.
It says in the Satanic Bible that we revere children and animals above all things.
So there are limitations on the indulgence?
Of course. There are limitations imposed by your own self-discipline and fortitude, not because you believe what you read from God. That's a very primitive and silly way to go about living. We live because we know what is right for us.
You know.
Mm-hmm. And to us, as it says in this...
You've constructed your own individual reality.
And I think it works a hell of a lot better than the Christian one.
Okay. Well, since you talk so much, I'm going to come back to you for number 2. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. I think that does need some explanation. What do you mean?
I really don't see how it does need explanation.
What is vital existence?
You don't know what vital existence is?
I'm asking you.
Our life here and now, living for, as I've said, all of the earthly and carnal pleasures. What is a spiritual pipe dream? Looking to some external deity or source for your answers. If something horrible happens to you, you just pass it off and say it's God's will. I'd call that a spiritual pipe dream.
Okay. Nicholas, Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit.
Look at the world as it really is. Don't delude yourself into thinking it's a way that it is not by calling upon holy cant and scripture as your guide to life. Let's look at the real world, look at the human condition as it exists right here and now.
Okay. Number 4. Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Seen it?
Well, I already explained that too, insofar as turning the other cheek. Kindness, if you're kind to me, then obviously I will be kind to you. We treat people as they treat us. If someone's going to be rude to us or treat us inappropriately, then they have to expect that in return. We won't waste our kindness on what we would consider ingrates, and that is being treated with disrespect or rudeness.
Number 5. Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. And let me flip over here to page 33 and also quote in companion to that, quote, "Hate your enemies with a whole heart. If a man smite you on one cheek, smash him on the other. He who turns the other cheek is a cowardly dog."
Doesn't that speak for itself?
Yeah.
What's your
Well,
point?
what would you do?
I'm just asking you. I'm asking you. These are your beliefs.
Right,
Hollywood
those-
Boulevard, and you were attacked by a gang of drug dealers for no apparent reason. What would you do? Would you bow
Pray
down
for
to them
or
and
would
say, "I'll
you
pray
strike
for
them
you"?
back?
Or would you try to do something to survive?
Well, you see, I don't.
you
You're
s-
asking. You want me to
No,
answer
you
the
asked
question?
me
I'll be
hypothetical
happy to answer the
questions,
question.
so-
You see, I most certainly, if my life were endangered by someone who murderously or violently were attacking me, now some Christians would differ on this. Some would say kneel and pray. I'm not one who would kneel and pray. I don't run 5 miles a morning for nothing. I'd run. I'd get out of there as fast as I could or fight for my life. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about vengeance and revenge.
If you wrong me,
We're-
however you wrong me, I will give you that same wrong back.
But if someone is physically striking you with their fist or hitting you with a steel rod, there is no question in anyone's mind you're being wrong.
Not always so.
But in the abstract, and this is what we get back to earlier, it seems that you reserve the right always to determine who is the wronged party by your natural brute instincts.
Yes,
and what
we
I'm
do.
saying
That's right.
is that the Bible tells us that the heart is deceitful and wicked, and who can know it? And common sense tells us that we all have been mistaken at some point in our lives,
The Bible-
assuming that we were the wronged one, when in fact we may have been the person hurting someone else.
The Bible teaches us to hate our own instincts. The
No,
Bible is a
no.
guidebook to how not to survive.
No.
The hero of the Christian religion is someone who willingly sacrificed themselves. Now, to me, someone who willingly dies on a cross and thinks that's a victory is a neurotic person. I don't worship such a God. So if you want to sacrifice yourself, go ahead. We want to live and survive, and you live by returning a wrong back to the person. It's very
And
simple.
I think that's the irony, too, of all the accusations of our sacrifices, whether they're children or animals or whatever. The whole concept of sacrifice is a Christian concept. Because we don't believe in any anthropomorphic deity, there's no need to sacrifice anything for anything.
Well, we'll get to that. I'd like to come back to that in a moment if I can, please. And if I forget, you please bring it up, all right? I want to get through these statements here. Number 6, Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. Zena?
A psychic vampire is someone who drains you of your vital energy. someone who is constantly looking to you for their support and for their energy. Responsibility to the responsible means if you demonstrate that you have a certain amount of responsibility, you will gain that much more responsibility. Your actions are rewarded by what you achieve or what you acquire, rather than being siphoned off to someone who hasn't deserved them.
You know, Zena, before there was any Nobel Prize for Mother Teresa, and really before most anyone knew who she was, I visited her home for the destitute and dying in Calcutta, and I saw the poor people laying there in the throes of death. I saw her comforting them, touching them, giving them what food and water they needed. Those, by your definition, were psychic vampires because they could give nothing back.
And you don't think Mother Teresa had some ulterior motive
No.
that she wanted these people
I
to...
really don't.
You don't think she wanted them to see her point of view?
No. As a matter of fact,
No,
these
I don't
people
think
could
she
not.
did,
I don't
actually.
think. As a matter of fact,
Because
speaking
most missions or missionaries want to convert people. They want people to see
save
their...
souls. Isn't that what Christianity is
that's a
designed to
presumption
do?
I think that you people have made, but
Well,
you're
I think it
you're
goes
talking,
deeper than
I think
that.
you've
I
made
think-
that presumption, but I think I've visited more mission compounds.
I think
Let me finish.
Okay.
I think I've visited more mission compounds around this world than you have. And I remember being in a Bangladesh refugee camp some years ago during that time of bloody war. And I saw a Salvation Army officer standing by the bedside of a woman who had walked 100 miles just to get there to escape the fighting, and she was dying. He could not speak her language. She had moments to live, and I said to him, "You cannot convert her. You know that, don't you?" He said, "Yes, I know that." I said, "Why are you doing it?" He said, "Because I feel it is necessary to offer her a few moments of tenderness and comfort in the last minutes of her life." He had nothing to gain by it.
Well,
now,
let me
she
say
was
something. Let me say
she
something.
was a psychic vampire by your definition.
Underneath the whole Christian theology and the whole organized structure of Christian dogma is what I feel is a masochistic, almost love and wallowing in despair and death. Christians love nothing more than to see suffering so they can go and whine and moan over it and help people and feel how good they are that they're helping people. It's a very morbid
Really
religion.
believe that?
You worship a God who's nailed and bleeding to a cross. Everything in the Bible drips with morbidity
Eat
and
his
death.
flesh and drink his blood.
And yet you
There's a lot
accuse us of being
morbidity.
morbid. If you want to be around dying and sick people all the time, then you have every right to, but we are not obliged to help these people.
And shouldn't that be a choice? Shouldn't that be I thought this was a free country. Shouldn't that be a personal choice from one individual to the next? Certainly there are going to be people who derive pleasure from doing that. And who are you to say that there are going to be people who don't want to do that? Who are you to say that that's wrong?
Maybe it is a greater evil, when all is said and done, to keep millions of people alive who are not ever going to be productive, who are going to drain all of our resources and create a stagnant world.
But to comfort them in the hours of their death, to offer an act of human kindness.
Well,
That's why
what you
there's
are
people
for.
like you. You don't want us there.
You want us to be like that as well?
You go hug them. I don't want
Well,
to.
if I were that dying person and you were standing over my body, yes, I would want you to be like that. If you were dying...
Just by being a
you know,
human being, you don't deserve my
you never
love and
suffered
respect.
pain?
Of course. And to those I love that suffer pain, I will comfort those who I like, those who I favor. I'm not everybody's friend.
Well, I'm sure you, Zena, heard the story from the Bible of the Good Samaritan. Are you familiar with that story?
Right.
Do you know what it's about?
To argue this point is just going round and round.
No,
because,
it is an important arguable point.
Your main concern in Christianity is to help the weak. Christianity was designed as a religion for slaves, after all. Historically, if there is any truth to it, the first followers of Christianity were slaves in Judea. Now, is that not true?
No, that is not true.
Who were the first followers of Christianity?
In fact, the first followers of Jesus Christ were not only common working people, but some of the most eminent intellectuals of the day, such as Saul of Tarsus. who was...
Well, Saul of
who
Tarsus
was,
is the person who recreated the Christian religion in his own vision and rewrote the scriptures in the first place.
well,
he caught on to a
I'm sorry,
good
but
thing.
that's hardly historically accurate.
Well,
You know, I want to...
that's really
Christianity-
interesting, because one Christian will
Christianity-
tell us one thing, and another will tell us a
Christianity
different.
is
Well,
fine.
what did they tell you?
Christianity is fine for people who have this great love for weaklings. Well, we don't have it, so why must we be forced to be a part of your love for all mankind?
Well, you certainly must not be forced. Nobody would force you to do anything. I guess...
Can't you understand that?
I find it difficult
You
to
really
accept.
want us to put up a fight
No,
or put up an
no.
argument,
I
but
just,
there's no...
Go help them.
I just wonder
think
how
it's a
you've
waste of your time.
how you've been able to psychologically insulate yourself in such a way. I cannot. I mean, I've not always been a Christian. And long before I was a Christian, it was just a matter of human responsibility to another creature, though I may not have believed them to be a creature of God as I do now. If they were suffering and they were in pain and they were hurting, I reached out to them.
How much clearer do I have to make it? A strong animal does not spend all of their energy and time on earth helping every weak animal. You help those in your own pack, in your own tribe, those who are like you, and those who are not like you and who are not contributing to you, you do not have a responsibility to.
If you want it on
Nicholas,
simpler terms, you can say that we are of different species.
Let's get to an issue that Zena raised a little earlier, and it's one that I know is a very sensitive one to you. And that is the issue of the allegations of human sacrifice. Now,
It's not that sensitive.
I will first of all go on record as being very clear in stating that my understanding the Church of Satan official ideology, the party line, is that we do not condone, we do not permit, we do not practice or encourage human sacrifice.
Correct.
Okay. What of those people who do read the Satanic Bible, who do hear your father's teachings, and then practice animal and or human sacrifice in
They
his
are
name?
Satanists. Just because you read a book doesn't make you that thing.
How many people have read the Holy Bible, misinterpreted it, and acted on it?
Do you know what John Wayne Gacy said to all of his victims
He read the
before they died?
23rd Psalm. Should we now say that John Wayne Gacy is a Christian murderer? It's a
Well-
foolish, sweeping generalization.
Okay.
Anyone can read a book. Mark David Chapman, who killed John Lennon, read Catcher in the Rye. Should we
And
ban
Leopold
Catcher in
and
the
Loeb
Rye? Leopold and Loeb
Nietzsche.
wrote Nietzsche. Let's ban Nietzsche. Where do you
Well,
stop?
I think there is a serious issue in terms of artistic freedom of expression that you've raised. I also think one has to determine whether or not inherent in the language expressed, the deeds that result from it are
Oh.
philosophically consistent with
There
it.
are far more violent things written than the Satanic Bible. So you can't tell me that that was written in such a way to promote violence.
Oh, I'm not saying that it was. I'm just saying
Well,
that it lends itself by the nature of
lot
the
of
language
things lend
used.
Every-
Well, let's read it. Let's read it. Okay?
Let me quote something. Jesus said,
let
I
me-
come,
you can
I
quote-
come
you
not
can-
with peace, but with a sword. Now, if I'm a Christian and I say, well, I have a sword, I'm going to go kill non-Christians. It's a matter of interpretation. I would say...
No, that is absolutely philosophically inconsistent with the larger worldview of the teachings of Christ. And anyone would
just
know
as
that.
it is with Satanism.
Well, okay.
Why blame the acts of a few
I have the book.
nincompoops on a book?
We'll read from this book if you'd like, but let's read this book, all right?
Because this one's more interesting.
Mad dogs are destroyed. Okay? The fact remains, given the opportunity, they would destroy you. Therefore, you have every right to symbolically destroy them. And if your curse provokes their actual annihilation,
Rejoice.
rejoice that you have been instrumental in ridding the world of a pest. He is made to be trampled underfoot.
You love quoting that. I've heard you say that before.
Have you?
Yeah, you really say it with gusto.
You could be a really good Satanist,
You
given
never
an
know
opportunity.
who's listening to you when you're on the radio. Well, but Zena,
It was just that little snippet that someone played for me.
you have every right to symbolically destroy them. I'm a writer.
Now wait,
I'm a
don't you-
writer and a
but let me
journalist. I
say
know
something.
the responsibilities
Bob,
of
let me say
language.
something.
If your curse provokes their actual annihilation, in other words, you're only doing this symbolically, but if in doings this curse, you know, putting the pins in the voodoo doll or whatever, if in fact they actually do die, rejoice.
Of course. Why is that inconsistent
I'm
with our
asking you,
philosophy?
Zena, your father wrote this book.
Right. So
If
what
the
you're
person
saying,
actually dies as the result of the curse you put on them, rejoice. Believe
Well, what
me,
do you
I'm
think
trying
would
to be,
promote
I'm
a
trying
curse
to be,
like that?
give you the opportunity. If there's an out here and you don't mean that, fine, say so.
of course we mean that. What do you want me to
Rejoice.
say? Oh no, he didn't mean to write that. Of course. What do you think we would use a destruction ritual for?
It's to
If your
destroy,
wife is
obviously.
raped and murdered, and you don't know who did it, and you want to throw a random curse at whoever it was that did it, and if it works, shouldn't you be happy?
Or should you mourn the rapist, which I guess Christians mourn the people who kill them too? Because
What is
Christian,
it? I don't know. What do you
Well,
think?
what response do you want
they're-
from us?
Don't you
it
think
isn't a
that
question
a
of
destruction
response
ritual?
that I want for you. I'm
See,
just trying
I
to.
think you seem to have this idea that we toss around these destruction rituals right and left. We do them every Friday night with
At
no
random,
regard.
we just
at
go through the
random.
phone book and,
Yeah,
and
we
pick
just
some.
pick people out with no regard for who they are. Don't you think there's a reason why we have that?
Sure, you feel
Okay.
that you've been wronged and have a right to get revenge.
And explain to me why that is wrong. Explain to me if it's
Well,
something that's so blatantly obvious.
The explanation is that when we allow every individual to become the arbiter of his own actions, the rule of thumb of his own conduct, and the determinate factor as to whether or not he is the wronger or the wrongee, then we have millions of individuals running around choosing their own courses of action.
You'll never have that. People
you
are
have-
too lazy to
in
decide
a society, we have a lot of very hurt, angry, dysfunctional, psychotic people who then in turn use this as an excuse for reprehensible action.
that.
And
Granted,
they used Geraldo Rivera, too, as an excuse to kill their mother, because Geraldo Rivera
psychotic-
brought Satanism
a
to them.
psychotic could look at TV Guide and find a motive for murder in it. It's really a moot point. You can read any book in the world and find an interpretation that you feel is valid to it.
Music. This is your album, Nicholas. It's called Radio Werewolf, The Fiery Summons. You're pretty good at marketing yourself.
That's
Well,
the
that's
devil's
our
place.
job.
Illusion and
You mean the
showmanship.
devil is
the-
alive and well in Madison Avenue?
Of course, advertising
I
is
think
the
you and I
devil's
agree with
trade.
that. You're a self-described satanic musician. You've heard his music, Zena. What does it sound like? You tell me.
It's more along the lines of classical music. It would be the equivalent to, it is satanic gospel, I guess you could say. It would be the equivalent of what you have.
Except
with
the
your
word gospel means good news. In this case, it's
Good
bad
news
Good
to
news.
us.
It's good news.
Bad news for you.
What does the music do to you when you listen to his music? Does it affect you in a certain way? Is there something about the mood, the ambiance of this? What does it do to you?
Well, the music that, and I'm beginning to work with Nicholas on his music, we make music for a purpose. It's not just background music, or it's not just, you know, fluffy, light stuff.
This is not elevator satanic
It's
music.
No.
ritualistic music. It is music that
for
by
a purpose.
even the act of listening to it, you are participating in a satanic ritual.
By listening to, so if I put this on and listen to it, I'm participating. But you're a listener. I'm
Because
asking you, how does it make you feel?
It's very stirring. It's very emotionally charged. You can't listen to this music and say you don't feel something, because you do. I'm sure you would probably feel either hate or fear or rage or something.
I
But
don't know, maybe he's a
Satanist-
great musician. I
Well,
just
you
say the
don't
guy's
know.
very talented.
Right, but I would say that someone who would listen to it would probably feel very similarly to how one might feel if they're listening to classical music that is
And-
bombastic and
But here's a
emotionally
song. Here's a
charged.
song called Incubus, which is about sexual cohabitation with demons, a human being cohabiting with a spirit being.
Right. That's what it is. That's correct.
True?
So,
And?
how does that make you feel?
Well, this is another
I mean, this is a
form of
woman
mythology.
cohabiting with a demon.
Right. There are succubuses too, which
Does that
are the
make you want to
opposite.
do it, or what?
Really bring it down to the lowest
I'm asking
level.
you. He says it is ritual music that draws you into its
that
intent.
particular
I'm asking
song,
a point-blank question.
that
Don't
particular
pass it on.
song is
Does it
designed.
make you want to do that, or what does it do? He's named it incubus. What does it do?
It's very stimulating, of course.
It's designed for sexual
It's designed to
arousal,
sexually
of course,
stimulate.
Of course.
Prepare one for a cohabitation with a demon?
Well, I don't believe in demons. I'm using a mythological word, incubus. It's an archetype. It is a real force, but you believe in demons. I don't. You're talking about demons. I'm not.
Is this commercial music? Is this is it going to sell, or is it just Satanists who listen to this, or who's going to run out the record store and buy
Satanists
it?
listen to it, and people who respond to a satanic philosophy, whether they call themselves Satanists or not, listen to it. But it is not intended for the millions. Certainly not.
You mentioned King Diamond earlier. King Diamond is a member of the Church of Satan, correct? King Diamond is a metal musician, kind of thrash metal, black metal. How do you feel about the Metallicas and Slayers of the world?
Well, musically, I think I hate rock music. I think rock music's one of the most dangerous influences on young people
How so?
in a long time.
Well, why is it dangerous?
It promotes self-destruction, which we're adamantly opposed to.
It promotes the use of drugs. It promotes a very conformist attitude, even though rock musicians and...
Under the guise of nonconformity.
Does it bother you, Zena, that they're kind of using your symbols and your faith and ripping it off to get rich?
No, I wouldn't say it bothers me because they're doing what they have to do.
It's a sign of the times, unfortunately, but it is...
But if it gets a kid into Satanism, hey, isn't that better for you?
It doesn't, though. No, it
No,
really
but it
doesn't.
doesn't, because
it
they
doesn't.
don't
All it
have a
does is
clear
give them
idea.
a surface illusion, which really has nothing to do with Satanism. So it is of no value to us that these people utilize satanic imagery. If we had public record
excuse me, I
burnings...
don't understand why. Because it seems to me...
Because that isn't Satanism, what they're encouraging. Drug use, the whole heavy metal aesthetic.
What's getting them away from Christianity? Isn't that to your
No, it
betterment?
really isn't. It really isn't, because these
And that
kids...
isn't better either.
No,
I mean,
just getting away
You're
from...
real ideological purists.
Absolutely. We're an elitist organization.
I mean, we feel that if people are happy being Christians, that they should stay that way. I'm not interested in driving people away from Christianity whatsoever.
If you want to be a Christian, you have every right to be a Christian. We don't want you to become a Satanist. We just want people who are already with us. We're not trying to convert or proselytize. And I think that has not been understood until this point.
You don't want to recruit. You don't want to convert.
There's only a limited amount of people in the world who can truly say they respond to the satanic philosophy or understand it. It isn't for the millions. It isn't for the masses. It is for the rulers and leaders of the earth. It's for people who achieve. That's 1% of humanity can achieve. Now, people are going to move away from Christianity in droves, and they are, but that doesn't mean they're all going to become Satanists.
You describe the Bible as an occult book.
Mm-hmm. Because...
You say you're not an occultist. Christians
exactly.
are.
Christians, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, believe in such concepts as birth by a virgin, angels and demons, the existence of eternal life, immortality. At the end of the world, corpses are going to rise out of the grave and become real again, depending on whether you're a tribulationist Christian or whatever denomination you are. The end of the world is a good thing.
As a Satanist, you know the dispensationalists and the pre-tribulationists and all that?
I wish I didn't know anything about them, but I'm forced to deal with them, so I know every kind of idiocy that is called Christianity. Exactly. It's an occult book. It is all about occultism. It's God is a spiritual creator in the sky. Christianity is occultism. Satanism says that these gods and belief systems that humanity needs and should have are archetypes, mythologies that make human beings behave a certain way. Everything is a fairy tale. Christ is a fairy tale as much as Satan. It depends on what archetype you choose.
Zena, if this new satanic century truly does come into being, if your numbers increase in the Church of Satan, and as you would hope the numbers of Christians would decrease, and then suddenly you are the people of the new social order, Describe to me what that social order would be like.
Well, I think it would take on its own momentum. We would have, what we would see is nature taking its course, because that's all we stand for, is to let nature dictate what our actions are, whether it's on a moment-to-moment level or a gut instinct level. And
Can
we
you be
would
more
have
specific? I mean, what about some of the laws? Would the laws of the land as they currently are
The
change
laws
any?
would probably become stricter, if anything.
Let's look at capital punishment, for instance. In a satanic society, a murderer wouldn't last a minute,
And
because
the
every individual would have the right to defend themselves then and there. Someone broke into your home.
Vigilantism? Go out and get the guy?
It's worked for thousands of years, and it should work again. If someone steals, cut their hand off, as they do in Saudi Arabia. That is a much more sane way of dealing with crime than the Christian way, which is to say, oh, you came from a bad background and we really love you, and here, go to jail and be rehabilitated, and then we'll let you out after you've read the Bible enough. I don't have mercy for criminals. I don't have mercy for people who cause strife, and they should be summarily executed and removed from society.
In talking with the two of you, there's not much lightness or humor.
That's because you're talking. That's because we're.
This is all really.
You're talking
It's all
to
very
us.
serious. There's kind of a fortress mentality about
If we were
this.
dragging you to be thrown to the lions, I don't think you'd see much
Look,
lightness.
you-
in
Well,
here.
Whether
have
you
been
are
thrown to the lions, seen it? Come on now, have you been thrown to the lions?
Oh, I would say
Satanists
as
all
far
over
as-
the country are
Am
being.
I
As
throwing
much-
you to the lions?
As much as the society that we live in now is, I'd say yes.
So what you're
it's
saying is
equivalent.
not just necessarily me today, that you have a beleaguered stance.
See, you don't realize, from our point of view, we are under attack. We
You
are
think,
being
well,
attacked.
everyone should be attacking Satanists.
No,
What's
no,
wrong
I
with
didn't say that. I didn't say
Well,
they
you-
should
But
be.
you don't see from our point of view either how we are under attack and we are retaliating. This is our
Do
philosophy.
you think I want to come here to explain these things to you?
This
We're
isn't-
being attacked every day by the media, by religious fanatics, and by people like you, even though
and
you
we're
claim to
constantly
be
being
rational.
called upon to
We have a
define
lot of
what we
other
are.
things to talk about than say why we're not this and why we're not that, but you constantly attack us and
Well,
slander us.
No,
If you're
no,
going
wait,
to say
wait.
the Satanic Bible is responsible for murder, then you're
So you
going to
don't see
have
that as an attack,
many more
but it is.
Satanists
No, I
coming
don't
out.
see that as an attack, because I think that I have the right, as a journalist, to cite quotes that I think
Well, we're not.
encourage
But we have the right
negative
to cite the
behavior.
Holy Bible, and you say, well, all these things aren't Christian.
No,
all these
no, I
things
say
weren't.
that they are philosophically inconsistent with what is taught, that they are.
Well, I seem to
they
see
are
this double
misread.
Why is there a
standard
double
here.
standard? Why? There's Jim Jones, the Spanish Inquisition,
Well, because
all
this
kinds
book
of
says,
religious and
because,
holy wars.
Because it's very simple. Because this book says, turn the other cheek and love your neighbor.
It says so many things.
This
It also
book
says,
hate your neighbor and get even with that sucker.
That book also
Perform
says.
a destruction ritual on him.
That book also
This
says
book
that
says forgive
witches
him.
That
shouldn't
book says, "Thou
exist.
shalt not suffer a witch to live."
That was the theocratic state of Israel.
Well,
That
it's
was
in
a-
that book. Why
that
don't
was-
you take it out?
I'm not taking it out. That was a civil crime in a theocratic state. It had
Why are
no-
you still using
it had
the-
nothing to do with person-to-person. I'm talking
But people
person-to-person
still
What about-
read
conduct
this.
here.
What about-
But people still read this.
I'm talking about the rules that govern interpersonal relationships, and those
The Old
rules are
Testament, the
love
Old-
your neighbor, do unto others
But
as
what
you would
about all
have
the
them to
other
do unto you.
things?
This
What about-
book says, perform a destruction ritual, and if he's annihilated as the result, rejoice.
Right, it does.
Rejoice.
What about the
What-
things in that book? In the Old Testament, it is filled with descriptions of pious religious people sacrificing goats to Jehovah, your God, not my God, but your God. How do you explain that? Why are you still using this primitive book about goat sacrifice,
In this
the proper
modern
way to
world.
wear your hat when you're in the desert? This has nothing to do with the modern society we live in.
The civil
But it's
ceremonial
still
Well, why are you
law
using- look at it
of
as
the
a history
nomadic
book.
Culture
What does it have
is
to do with your
not
culture?
The new covenant that Jesus Christ established through the cross. That is the message that we now bear. That
Why?
is the good
Why?
news that
Why
we
are
bring
you?
forth.
You are of European descent, I imagine. Why do you reject the beautiful and pure tradition of pagan heritage, which you have, in favor of an alien Eastern creed that came out of a desert that has nothing to do with the world you come from or live in? Why?
Well, the answer is very simple, that there is one God, and that paganism is an attempt of Satan to turn people from the true God.
What was it when your ancestors before Christ were pagans? What was
God,
it then?
Were they?
God
Were they
always,
sinners?
God always was.
Why didn't anyone hear about it?
They did hear about it. The invisible things of God are clearly seen from the creation of the world, the first chapter of Romans.
What about
tells
all
us.
your ancestors who were pagans?
Well,
Are they sinners?
some of my ancestors probably were pagans because they were a product of that culture in its declension
Well,
away
you-
from the worship of the
Well,
true
you
God.
are a product of Judeo-Christian culture, which has infiltrated Western society.
I'm also
and is
I'm
now on the
also,
wane.
as you, the product of a personal decision as to whom I would yield my life to and what value systems I would choose to live by. I made that personal decision.
And your personal decision, you will admit, is not based on rationality, but faith in a book.
No, I will not admit that. It is based upon the height of rationality of God as a demonstrably intricate, loving, personal creator and designer of this universe.
Well, whether you like it or not, in the future, people are going to look at the Bible and put it on the shelf with Mother Goose's fairy tales and all the other wonderful books that human beings have created to give them some meaning, and it will just be looked at as another book. You have your belief system. It's based on a book written 2,000 years ago. As far as
In
I'm
part,
concerned,
in part.
it has no
And
relevance.
it was not written 2,000 years ago.
They've revised it. King James revised it, took out the
but
parts
there
he
is the
didn't
Old
like.
Testament that goes back with historical
that's-
consistency far beyond
And that's the
that.
part that advocates animal sacrifice, is the Old Testament. Why didn't you throw that part out then? Why do you worship a book that advocates animal
as
sacrifice?
she used the word, the scapegoating was a foreshadowing of the ultimate sacrifice as Christ, our great high priest, came to offer himself as the final sacrifice for sin.
Well,
You
there
see,
will come a day when people will look at this tape and hear what you're saying and say these were truly the dark ages, when an intelligent person like Bob Larson could advocate such insane ideas.
The idea that God would love us enough to give of himself for us. I don't consider that to be insane. I think it's the most beautiful idea on the face of this planet.
So Santa Claus is a nice idea too,
No.
but I wouldn't set up a church based
But
on
what
it.
it does is that it does for me what I could not do for myself.
Makes
you
you
see,
feel
as a
happy.
Satanist, you
Right.
can
It makes
save
you-
yourself.
It makes you
As
feel...
a Christian,
yeah.
I cannot save myself.
Well, I'm
Why?
telling you, what if I told you you're free? There is no God, there's no heaven or hell. Bob, you're free to do whatever you want to do. You're a fairly rational person. I trust you. You can dismiss all this nonsense and live your life now. You wouldn't go with that. You'd rather still...
Well, I would have to make both a decision of faith as well as a decision of my intellect to determine whether or not that was truly true. You see,
Have you never
I think-
doubted? Have you never doubted that this book, the Bible, may
Certainly.
not be an accurate portrayal
Certainly.
of the
And I've
universe?
doubted many times the veracity of what I personally believe. And like all people, I'm on my own pilgrimage to find what has theologically been called that ultimate ground of being, that ultimate truth. But as I continue, I'm continuing on a pathway paved by mercy and justice and goodness and love, not one paved by vengeance and hate and retribution,
Well, let
where the
me-
strong survive.
let me let you
Those are
in
the
on
two
a
things that are
secret, then.
antithetical.
What you're talking about, love, mercy, forgiveness, peace, that's all theoretical. Not
Not if you're the recipient of it.
Not
it's
even any Christian is practicing that at this moment.
Not all of them.
Christians are cheating on their wives. Christians are killing each other.
Yeah.
And the Bible and your church aren't going to change anything about that. Until you look at human nature realistically, you're never going to have a sane perspective on the world.
Finally, in a nutshell, your view of Christ and your view of Satan. So there's no misunderstanding to anyone as to what you truly believe about both. I'll let you go first and Zeno last. Christ and Satan.
Christ is a mythological figure, just as the Easter Bunny, Hercules, Zeus, the Tooth Fairy, and if you want to believe that Christ existed and was a historical personage, that is your right. However, I place no importance on Christ or the teachings of Christ, except that Judeo-Christianity as a whole has, in my view, been a very dangerous cult that has destroyed human potential for 2,000 years, and I oppose the idea of Christianity. I do not accept the religious validity of Christ, but I do believe it is a dangerous social system, and I am glad to see that it's finally decaying.
And Satan?
Satan, just as all the other mythological figures I named, is a figure that the human imagination has created as an archetype. If you've read Carl Jung, you know what an archetype is. An ideal. It's a type, a form, and it has no more valid existence than Christ. However, you can decide a lot about a person, whether they resonate to the archetype of the God of death, which is Christ, the God of self-sacrifice and surrender, the God of the meek and the weak, or Satan, who is traditionally the God of the strong, of the powerful, and of the leaders of the world.
Zena, Christ and the devil.
Personally, I don't even give them the time that I think the average Christian does. I don't view Christ as anything more than just what Nicholas said, an archetype. Satan, it's clearly been stated that we use it in the representative and symbolic sense of meaning the adversary, or the opposed, or the one to question, or the rebel, traditionally. And any anthropomorphic form that Satan may hold, you would be more likely to find in something that's right around us. A physical object, maybe a car. Or
No
maybe
God, no devil, just us.
It's
That's
up
what
to
you're
you.
saying. Just us as
That's
animals.
what it boils down
That's
to,
it.
yeah.
We live in a cosmos that is created by nature, comes from nature, and shall return to nature. There's no judge above us or below us.
You may be stunned by what you just saw. It's shocking to hear anyone, even Satanists, calmly discount love, compassion, and moral decency. Don't comfort yourself thinking the ideas of LaVey and Schreck are pretentious. They meant every word they said. Satanism is not the stuff of Gothic horror novels. It's an active ideology dedicated to the subversion of values we hold dear. Satanism can and does affect you. Satanic crimes are increasing. We've recently learned that international drug dealers look to black magic for assistance. And far too many teenagers are drawn to devil worship because their lives are devoid of love and meaning. Combating such incredible evil is not the job of politicians, policemen, or theologians. That responsibility belongs to you and me. The Bible tells us, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. If you and I will be instruments of God's good wherever we go, the evil agenda of Satanism will be defeated. Be comforted by the words of 1 John 3:8. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. If your faith is weak, now is a good time to reconsider what you think about God, Satan, and the origin of evil. If I can help you, don't hesitate to write me. You'll find the address on this video. Thank you again for taking time to watch the first family of Satanism. This is Bob Larson.